Good morning, afternoon, day, Monday, all that stuff. Welcome to the stream. My name's Random Hamilton, and I am glad you're here. We're going to be kicking off a new piece today. Initial concept sketches went up on the Instagram, and we're going to kind of take and explore that a little bit. Welcome back to the stream. If you are returning, welcome for the first time. If you are here for the first time, glad you're here. So today we're going to be kicking off the second piece that we've done on the stream this week. We're really starting with just loose pencils today. I wanted to make sure that we kept it as true to developing it on the stream with you as I could. Let's turn the audio down a little bit. Just make sure the desktop audio is down a moment. All right, let's see how that works. Maybe hold the volume on this down a little bit. Okay. All right. Okay, if you are in the chat and you can hear me, if you're having any challenges with the volume, please just holler at me. You can send me either a direct message on Facebook, you can send me a message on Instagram, Twitter, or in the chats that I have available to you. Just want to make sure that it's a good experience for you listening and hearing what we're talking about today. So today, let's go ahead and get everything rolling. Give me just one moment. And let's just go ahead and make this happen. I'll be just a second here. Bum. All right, and I'm just getting our screen set up. It'll be just 1 second. Apologies about the delay. All right. I had my son was fighting the nap today. For any parents out there, you understand exactly what I'm talking about. You set your schedule for your kid, and then you just hope to get him there in a reasonable amount of time. Sometimes it takes a minute sometimes. All right, so we are getting our camera going. So today I'm going to be starting the piece that is called The Man with Only One Remaining Given Name. It's a title that my wife came up with out of nowhere. We were just kind of talking out ideas, and she threw that at me, and I was just like, oh my god, it's amazing. And so then kind of just spent the week kind of hashing out inspiration, you know, what it means. It's definitely it's me, right? You know, sometimes, especially when I'm just trying to start to get used to developing and setting up these kind of things, sometimes it's fun just to use yourself as a medium. And in this case, that is exactly where we're at. And so I'm going to allow. It was difficult. Hey, welcome back, Chector. Oh, Checked. Hey, man. You know what? I'm sorry you had such a hard time the last few days, man. And you know, I hope that you are able to enjoy some chill, relaxing time and kind of get more into a better space. And thank you so much for coming back. I love that you came back. That's delightful and exciting. So thank you so much. We're going to see what's going on with this camera, because this camera is not wanting to turn on. So let's go ahead and get ourselves checked up. I am a new stream, so I am just starting off fresh. There's a lot of inexperience on display, and I fully, that's just what it is. But I hope that over time we will refine. I will get better equipment, and I will get better audio, and we can just kind of keep improving and developing. And that is my ultimate goal, is to turn this channel into something that you hold up as one of the pillars of quality when it comes to streaming, that you have the option to watch. Chector. So thank you so much for coming back, by the way. I totally understand you're on a different time zone than me. And honestly, hey, if you ever have any requests, any ideas, you want to share any feedback, Chector, I know that your schedule is very different than mine. Shoot me a message on Facebook or Instagram. Just message me directly, and I would love to kind of get your feedback. And then also, if you have any ideas for pieces you'd like to see, send them my way. You are actually one of my most returning viewers, and so in my opinion, I think that it would be amazing to make sure that we consider your ideas as part of that, even though you can't be here for the majority of the daytime streams. I know it's late at night for you. And also, could you let me know if I'm saying your name right? Because I read it as Chector, but I could be probably pretty wrong. So 1 second, guys. I'm going to turn the washer off. I don't want to have any weird background noise coming out to you guys. I'll be right back. All right, let's do this. Okay, so we are going to go ahead and kick off. Let me give you a little context for this piece. So the last piece was, and I don't think I did this for the last piece, so for anybody who do switch the microphone, there was some noise. Yeah, there was some noise. I actually went and turned the dishwasher off. So there's the magic of getting some quality sound in this room, is turning the dishwasher off, thankfully. Yeah, so last week's piece focused a little bit around more of the just kind of dealing with kind of consequences and the pathway of like getting back to creativity. So there's a lot of working through personal challenges and all the struggles of bills and student loans and just all the stuff that you got to be a responsible parent and husband and partner. And it was really cathartic, really good. And I was really happy with it. And that kind of naturally led to this piece. And this piece is much more focused around streaming, and streaming becoming a new platform for me to share ideas and art. And in this case, it's highlighting on an element that is, I've only got one name that I was given. Everything else has been changed just through time and marriage and preference. And my wife came up with this great idea for the title, and it just kind of stuck. And so, yeah, it took a little while. We kind of played with some shapes and found some nice inspiration, and it just naturally kind of came together. And that's kind of where we're at. So right now it's very loose. Oh, thank you very much, Jector. Yeah, I'm always worried that you guys can't see the green on camera. So I'm very cognizant that it might be a little hard to read, but I'm hoping that we can really quickly block it out with the red pencil and really put the details in there. There's a lot of elements in here that we need to discuss. I've kind of layered into a few pieces, but essentially this is everything on my mind. So we're going to go ahead and explore that. We're going to explore this microphone blowing the top half of my head off in a more positive way. Sometimes I'll use a little bit of jarring imagery, but I assure you that it's not meant to be a source of violence or a cry for, well, maybe it's not a cry for help, but it's it's cathartic in its approach. So yeah, let's go ahead and kick off. Let's get going. Welcome to the channel, everybody. Glad you're here. And any ideas or feedback, or just want to hop in the chat and say hi to each other, please don't hesitate. I love the chat interaction, and it keeps me motivated and keeps me rolling. So let's see here. So, although I've got the primary block out done, there's still quite a bit of massaging that needs to happen, right? So, I've made some commitments that I'm going to have some banners in this. In the past, I've drawn a lot of banners with font and stuff. And for me, it's a nice framing device for the bottom of this piece. All the pieces you guys are seeing over the next few weeks have the intention of being made in 3D, so I'm going to be sculpting them in ZBrush and then eventually turn them into 3D prints that you can download for free, or I will be eventually getting masters made and having a vinyl toy line made. So this is a part of that journey, and right now we're just kind of thinking about ways to make sure that our piece falls on the page entirely, and that we think about ways to kind of make sure that everything kind of has a start and end, because that's something that when you have to translate to 3D, that's something you really have to do, is you have to make sure to actually give yourself those opportunities later on, just requirements of a physical model. So first off, let's really clarify this hand, because I feel like the hand dictates the angle of the microphone, dictates the angle of the head response. And so I'm just going to come in here. Now, one thing I do like to do is, we can draw a good hand, right? If we're talking about drawing a hand, we're talking about creating a structure that is a box effectively, because the hand is effectively a box with a taper, right? So if you look at your hand, there's two boxes. The first box is this box. The second box is this box. You'll notice there's a bit more of a chunk on this side, but on this side, it's not nearly as intense. So what we do is we usually go ahead and increase the back side of the taper there. Drop that down.
And then your fingers really are just, like, think about your fingers as an extension, like put boxes out. Think about the way the fingers sit next to each other. Now it's easy to go, oh, fingers are there, but fingers really are an extension of this form right here. The fingers don't kind of stick on, they follow through, they're a flow, right? And so when we're thinking about hands, it's never about drawing hands the right way. I think a lot of artists get very caught up in worrying about if they can draw hands correctly. And I think that's maybe the trap. Drawing hands correctly is a misnomer. Because hands are an expression, right? Hands are one of the first tools we do to show intent, to show effort, to show something being accomplished. Hands are the way that we define the actions that are happening in the scene. So looking at your drawing, I understand that you'd be forbidden to take a pencil in my hand to draw. There's times when I felt like that, to be honest, Checker. Checker had a really great comment on YouTube chat. Said, looking at your drawing, I understand that I need to be forbidden to take a pencil in my hands or draw at all. I think what he's trying to convey is that maybe drawing isn't something that he feels comfortable with or approaches. And I absolutely have had those times. In fact, I stopped drawing for a long time because I just felt kind of imposter syndrome. I wasn't really connecting and feeling like I was an artist in the truest sense. Sometimes you just feel like it's not landing. No matter how good of an artist you are, you have these moments where you just aren't producing in the way you'd like. And so this is always a really great way. Sometimes you just need to put the pencil to the paper and see what happens. And in that case, this is where we're at. I really struggled in finding the composition for this piece. I was working on this piece for most of the evening last night, just trying to nail this. And this guy's gone through several different compositions. But even with the limited amount of art that's on here, I can kind of see what it's going to become. And so because of that, because I can see, this week we're going to be using blue pencil, by the way. Blue pencil is our prominent. The reason that I feel like that's really okay, though, is because, sometimes the piece, if you try to force it, and you try to force the piece to kind of come to life, you're going to really run into some real struggles. Because, your idea, when you're drawing something, you can only get so far in technique alone, right? You can do all the lines right, you can do all the hands right, you can do all the anatomy right, but if you're not bringing a story to life, sometimes it's very hard to take that piece to conclusion. Now, if you're doing like a fan art or something like that, then maybe that's a little more direct because the story is already defined, right? You already know what the character is you're designing. You already know the story around that character. You already know their foibles or the way they move or act or if they're, if it's like an action piece, how they're going to look. But for something where you're making it yourself, you really are having to give yourself the room to explore the story. I've talked about it last week, and I'm very interested, but I need to sleep forward. Tell me what your time zone is. Like, oh yeah, for sure. Check my time zone is on the Pacific, U.S. Pacific Northwest, so PST. And generally Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday, I will be on from 11 to 1, and then from 4 to 7. That's my general streaming schedule Monday through Friday. There will be times like this morning where I wasn't able to be on just because my son needed a little extra attention, but I'll make sure to shout on Twitter or Instagram if my schedule is going to change. My schedule is going to become much more regular. This is only the second week going, so I've had some really good responses, and I'm hoping to kind of maintain that pace at a much more regular clip. So again, thank you so much for being here. I totally hear you, and please check out the VOD, and also again, shoot me any messages or ideas you have. I'd love to hear your feedback. And if you have any requests for subject matter, I'm super open. So feel free to throw some ideas my way, and I'll see what I can make happen. And I hope you have an amazing night, by the way. Get some good sleep. All right, back to it. Now, one thing you'll notice, I get pretty detailed when it comes to my pen work. That's just me. I just really like that as a method of storytelling. But when I'm laying in artwork, I really try to keep it loose. I try to not get too caught up in the details because things are going to change. Like even now where I'm laying in this brown pencil, this is only a temporary, just to make sure that physically this is going to work in the space. And so we'll just go ahead and just build, and push. Now again, anatomy, things like that, considerations, and you're going to see some things that I'll put down in pencil that just won't be right. But part of what you're going to see is not just saying, oh, this is exactly what it's supposed to be, but also the fact that if I'll be able to see compositionally if it works on a larger scale. And so in this case, we have the fingers kind of wrapping together. This is not going to be a traditional microphone like you'd think like a musician. This is actually going to be like the streaming microphone that I have, which would be fun. All right, sounds great. Have a good one, Schechter. Thanks again, buddy. So I have a tonor, and I'm just going to go ahead and take a picture of this at the angle that I need it. There's another trick, by the way. Use as much reference as you can. 1 second, you're going to hear my voice go weird, so I'm turning my mic. All right, there we go. So now we've got the microphone picture right here. And we're just going to go ahead and use that piece of ref. Because again, guys, one thing that I really want to stress, nobody innately knows how to draw everything perfectly. It's just not how it works. It's one of those fundamentals that I think is not highlighted enough. But as artists, we are interpreters of the world, if that makes any sense. And what I mean to say by that is, you can only draw what you can imagine or what is already created and you've experienced. And so if you're drawing on or leaning into something that has a realistic basis, it really behooves you to just have that item or a picture in front of you, just so you can give the best opportunity to create the closest representation of what you're trying to hit. So let's go ahead and we're going to put this guy. Let's see, this is a squared off mic, so it's got a squared face like that. Now I like to flare all of my objects, even if it's a perfect straight item, because a little buoyancy and scale is something I really enjoy in my work. And I'm just going to start laying in the main structures here, because we know that the mic has two sections. There's a sleeve on it, and that sleeve is to hold it suspended in rubber bands so that it doesn't receive any kind of like friction from the movement of a desk, and I move the crap out of my desk, so it's essential. And then there's this guy, which is the frame holding up the pop cover, and that's so that if I'm talking into the mic and I'm doing a hard P or hard T, it doesn't blow your mic out. It's a thing. This is something we use in gaming, pretty much anything. Anybody who uses a microphone for anything performance related or of a certain quality you're looking for, generally want to go ahead and do some kind of pop filter on it, just to make sure that you're not blowing people's eardrums up in their headphones. So we've gone ahead, we've put the string here. I'm not too worried about this guy being exact. I'm just trying to indicate an element of realism, but nobody's going to look at this and say, hey, that's not your microphone. That's not why we're doing this. Why we're doing this is we're doing this to kind of create the very clear picture that this isn't a musical microphone, but this is more of a desktop microphone, because it's more relevant to what I'm doing right here and what we're doing today. Let's see here. Get the picture back. That was super helpful. Okay, there we go. This is a rounded square. Cool, schools. Follow the perspective lines we've already created. Awesome. Okay. Yeah, that'll do. And then that'll just make this much less severe. We can just make that a shorter pop. Yeah, that works. Okay. So let's go ahead and lay in a couple of just harder lines so we can just commit to this. So, I think I am. Now when you're drawing something mechanical, I think it's very easy to get worried that what you're making doesn't look realistic, and that's a fair concern. But at the same time, you have to understand that mechanical, just like organic, it really relies on just the shadows and the highlights. And when you first draw something mechanical, it's not going to look right, and it's not going to look right because it simply doesn't have the information there to allow the viewer to define what it is, and that's okay. This is why we take the time to block things out, because it's about a slow development. It's about picking what thing you want to develop. In this case, you'll notice that I've made this arm. This arm is what attaches the pop filter to the actual microphone. So just by making sure that I'm following these lines that I set down, so I set down a line here, a line here, a line here, a line here. By making sure that I adhere to those lines, and you can see where I'm not, that will do more work to bring this into perspective than anything else, and to make this feel right. And again, remember earlier, I just blocked these pieces in. And again, on my pieces, I'm not going for realism. I'm going for essentially like faux realism, if that makes any sense. What I mean by that is that whatever you see drawn here is going to be something that leans into or towards reality, but that's not the goal. I'm just not interested in going for reality on these. It's just not how I operate. It's also not really my style. I certainly can, but if I was doing like concept art or something to that nature, I think I'd be a little more inclined to try to make it look super realistic. But in this case, it's not a necessary venture for our time, and we have so many other things that I would rather spend on, like how can we put a face on this microphone, which is the next challenge we have. Okay, so the microphone is blasting. And something that you see happening here is that I am doing a mic that is receiving information. So like if I'm talking into the mic, so it's receiving the audio. But in this case, in the picture, the mic is actually blowing out. And so that audio and that pressure and all that is actually coming outward from the mic, and that's what's having my head kind of explode. And so I'm going to go ahead and just start getting this guy defined properly. Make sure my pop mic is on there. There we go. Yeah, that'll do. And then there's like a little sheath on top that this thing slides into, and that'll be important to kind of sell the idea that this bit is sliding into another piece. Yeah, that'll do. Okay. Alright, now on my microphone there are just a couple of channels, and I don't need to do them all to exact. I just kind of sell the idea, and that way you kind of get an indication of what the mic is. Okay. And there's definitely some on the other side, so we'll have those continue, and then we'll stop the line midway. Okay, let's go ahead and hardline this microphone. So the areas that we know are going to be okay to hardline as areas that are obstructed, right? So the areas that have nothing overlapping over the top of them. Now that's not to say they won't. At some point I might have like an arm reach over an element, something like that. But we'll figure that out as we go. There will be opportunities to define what that looks like. So we're going to go ahead and just take this guy and then pull it down. Now you'll notice that I work with two pencils. This is something that I picked up years and years and years ago from my mentor, Lee White. The guy was amazing, and he actually, one of my first lessons he ever taught me, because he really challenged me as an artist. I wasn't only allowed to draw with a pen for like 3 months, like at all. No drawing sketch, no using pencils at home, nothing, just pen. And part of that was because I had really fallen into a trap early on as an artist of just erasing everything. So I would draw and I'd erase, and I'd draw and I'd erase. And what eventually happened is I wasn't making any progress. I was never fully completing pieces. I'd get pieces done to about like 80%, but I just felt like I couldn't get over that last little hump. And it was really detrimental to completion of anything. And so Lee had me switch to all pens. And the reason for that is because pens are entirely additive, like we've talked about before. When you're using a pen, it is all add and very little remove. I mean, you can do a little bit of removal, but for the most part, your pen is staying if you put it down. So, that really meant that if I drew, I had to accept it was on the paper. And that, opened up a whole new world of pen work to me. But also, when I finally came back to using pencils on a more regular basis, my relationship with pencils changed. My relationship with pencils wasn't so much that I draw to erase. My relationship with pencils is more that I draw to lay down the bones. And the bones of the artwork then would get developed upward. So on my artwork, you'll see a lot of times where I'll have pencil work 3 or 4 layers down, and I don't erase it. And I really have learned to accept and embrace having my artwork show all of its work and just not try to clean it up. Because what's the point? If I need to clean it up, I'll probably recreate it in another form that's intended for that, if it's vector or if it needs to be a 3D model or something like that, or a painting. So in the pencil world, as a sketch, why get rid of the stuff that gives it personality, that shows you the journey that you took to get here? Which is the way I'm kind of thinking about it now. How do I show the most holistic version of this journey in this artwork? Alright, so we've got our primary detail on there. We've got our little holder. This is holding our mic portion. Got 5 viewers in the chat, guys. Thank you very much for being here today. Welcome to the stream. If it's your first time, just going to hang out and be drawing, talking through it. If you have any ideas, questions, suggestions, feedback, it's all welcome. I love participation, and if you would like to hit me up on social media, on Facebook, Instagram, on Twitch, YouTube, whatever you'd like. This stream is intended to be a place where we develop and build, and I would love to start. I'm working towards building an artist community and creator community. Eventually we can get your feedback and your ideas, and the content will steer towards what you'd like to see. So yeah, that's where we're at right now, and we're just going to keep continuing on. So welcome to the stream, and thank you for being here. Very much appreciated. Alright, so now you can see how I'm using the blue pencil, right? I'm not worried about making anything permanent. I'm not even shading. Like I'm not worried about that. I just need to make sure that all the elements on the page actually seem to fit together. And sometimes that can be a little mysterious until you just commit and put some hard lines down. Now the reason I call these hard lines is that I'm not using the edge of the pencil to just initiate some light on the page. I'm pressing down. I'm actually creating grooves. And the reason for that is because A, I want you to be able to see it on the screen, because the green's a little hard to see. But B, I'm forcing myself into this is again that pen kind of mindset, right? I'm forcing myself into some decisions. I'm putting something down that I later on have to now accommodate. And that's okay. And you do not have to approach art like that. That is me overcompensating for a weakness of my capabilities. But now it's something that went from being a weakness to now being a feature of something that I leap into and I appreciate and I work hard to maintain. So that's a good way to always think about the challenges you have when it comes to your artwork. Think about somewhere where you're weak. Look online, talk to your peers, talk to a mentor, put it in chat. Let's talk about it. Bring it up. Let's talk about areas where you have struggles with your process, and let's find a technique or a method that gives you a tool to overcome that. And then the real challenge is now take that method and make that a part of your process. Integrate that overcoming process into what you do naturally. And all of a sudden you're going to see some really great accidental things occur out of nowhere, and they're really fun when it starts occurring. Alright, so one thing we're going to change. I'm really liking all of this. This is all feeling good. The mic end just kind of comes out to this. Let's make sure we follow our lines. Let's go ahead and put the back of the mic out here. The back of the mic is like literally the least important piece, but we have to make sure that the lines line up with the ones up here, because if they don't, then your eye is going to tell you, hey, that guy's perspective's way off. And so we're just going to go there. Good. We're going to follow this line. I did a 2-point perspective. So if I wanted to, I could certainly draw my perspective grid, but that feels like a lot of work. And I just don't know that I'm feeling like going that deep right now. Okay. Yeah, that'll work. And then this thing cuts off, which is like a little mic thing. So let's do that. Like that, and then that'll be the core, and the core will come down here, and the core will wrap around to help create the border for the banner that's below it. Let's go ahead and develop that. So got that there. There's our mic back. This is also a great example of a place where I may do something really weird. And what I mean by that is this place where I could completely let the form devolve into something else, right? Like you could have a character rise up behind the banner, and you could have a character's head blocking that out. Like having the back of the mic be proper is like the least concern of mine. So it's more about where can this part of the picture, which will kind of short up this bottom corner, could be really impactful and another story element that I just haven't thought about yet. So we'll figure that out as we go. Okay, so let's go ahead and get the rest of the mic here. Pull this guy up. We know our lines, we know our shape. So let's go ahead and continue on the perspective we've already drawn. Now I am going to change that pop filter to a round pop filter. I think that is the only thing that I think could be more interesting. I think we have enough square going on, and I really try to stay away from mechanical in this kind of artwork. Like, don't get me wrong, I love drawing like mechs and robots and mechanical stuff. I was a product designer for a few years where I drew products and made them in 3D. So it's something I enjoy, but for this kind of stuff, it feels like it's almost too formal. I feel like it's just the wrong tone. And I would much rather have things feel exciting and good. And I'm just going to build this. I'm not liking that. Let's see. Let's follow the line from this guy. There we go. So if you start from those parallel line and then build out, you'll have much better consistency when it comes to mechanical corners and stuff. I call it an anchor line. That is not the appropriate terminology for it. I just made that shit up. But effectively, what you're doing is you're trying to find other areas that have the kind of mechanical sharpness that you want to kind of align to, and then just make one, and then the rest of them follow that one. Okay? So we're going to keep pushing here. Apologies if me turning the page is a little new. It's a kind of a way I work. I just try to always make sure that I am looking at the whole piece and taking in the whole composition, and as I turn it and as I move it, that is a process that just kind of helps design the piece. I'll always see something from a new angle that I didn't account for, and it's one of the ways that I'm able to make sure that the final product is exactly what I want to show. Alright, we've got that piece in, we've got that piece in. We'll go ahead and put one more little anchor down here because this guy is settled in. And it's okay if these perspectives differ, because again, this is floating inside this. It may be a little weird to look at right now, but as we go with the pen, we'll adjust that. I mean, I'm not really attached to these. I'm just doing those right now for myself. So let's go ahead and take this to a circle. In fact, let's just do, because we already made the square, let's just do the circle inside. So I know there, I know there. That's not bad. And then that'll be on that side. And we'll stand right here. Yeah, I'm feeling that. Alright. You know what? I'm not liking that, actually. Let's change that. Let's change that element. I don't think it's necessary. So in this case, I was going to have the pop filter kind of sitting in front, but I actually think the pop filter kind of interrupts this whole process, and I don't think it's doing what I want it to. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make it seem like maybe the energy blasted out from the tip, and the pop filter kind of exploded with it. So let's just go ahead and bring this explosion down a little bit. I'm going to go here, there, let's see. So the explosion comes out. Now I'm going to let the explosion be hypergraphic. And this is one of those things I talked about last week on the last piece. Visual contrast happens in a lot of ways, right? You can define visual contrast between the high contrast between two different contrasting visual colors, right? Black and white. The highest point of contrast you can have, case in point in the last piece, right? When we're talking about high contrast, you're talking about areas where there's a high amount of black against a high amount of white. So visually, your eye goes, oh, that's that separation, right? Contrast can also be tonality. You know, it can be action versus something that's really slow. When we're talking about contrast, we're not just telling your eye where the contrast is, we're telling your mind, your brain. Because when you see something, the beauty of humans, when we see something, our brain takes the information, processes it, decides if it's dangerous or not, and then lets us observe if it's not too dangerous, we don't need to run away. And so the trick here is is how do we make sure that when we're thinking about this contrast element, how do we make sure to bring that out in a way that is interesting as a visual, story-wise. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to say that this bit breaks off here. So we break the bit of the mic stand. Yeah, that's fine. And that'll let us do this kind of fun flaring thing, which I'm totally down for, to like make mechanical seem a little bit less a sure thing. Yeah, that'll do. Okay, so let's go ahead and let's start bringing just a little bit of action out, just so we can kind of let the eye. Alright, so for those that are new, welcome to the channel. Glad to have you here, glad to have everybody joining in today. So today we're working on a new piece. The piece is called The Man with Only One Remaining Given Name. You can see my Instagram kind of talked about it, put some ideas out there. We are working primarily on developing the pencils today. It's a Monday stream, so we're just starting fresh. I put down the loosest level of lines, and we're just developing it as we are here. So any ideas or suggestions you have, please throw them in. Very happy to receive those and add those into this process. So we've started laying in some of that energy, and I'm really digging on that. You know, that's going to be fun for the shading. That's going to be fun for the way the beard reacts. I think it's going a little too high into the beard. I don't want to obstruct that because I think the beard is going to be a really great way for us to show some of this dynamicness that's coming from this energy. So I don't want to totally block myself off there. Let's go ahead and lay some teeth in just so I have myself a nice guide. Got the lower teeth there. Now, one thing you're not going to see in this piece is I'm not going to do a bunch of blood and guts and gore. That's not my style. I'm just not really interested in that. Anytime I have somebody exploding or part of the form exploding, it'll usually be a scatter of random items that, you know, is realistic into the way it would blow out, is realistic into the method and the separation of pieces, but it doesn't do anything for me to make it gross or gory. It's just not my style. Alright, so let's go ahead. I feel like we've got a good thing going on here. I can add those little bits of details and chunks from the sound mic and all that, and that'll be something that we'll kind of do over here, as we'll kind of show the debris flying out. Because I think that kind of can insinuate this clearly broke off. I'll do one more piece of this up here, where it's like part of the mic stand breaking off as well. Yeah, that'll work. So there will be visual continuations that like something blew apart without us having to show the pop filter, and that will keep it kind of more interesting and fun. Okay, so let's see. Created the center line. So let's talk about where I want you to look, right? So when you're drawing this kind of piece, let me correct that. When I'm drawing and I'm creating artwork, I've got 3 goals. Number 1, I want you to have a starting point. So when you look here, that's going to be cool. But actually, I want your attention maybe probably around here. Let me see. If I'm creating a triangle, I guess we can start in the head. Okay, I want you to start here. Then I want you to move here. Then I want you to come here, following the words and the banners, and then I want you to come back up this way. So I want to create a triangle. And the reason I'm doing that is because I want you to take in the story in a specific way that by the time you get to the end, you know more about the piece that you didn't know from your first glance. And that's always a goal of mine. Like, yeah, it's cool to show somebody really doing a cool action pose, jumping through the air, right? But if all you're doing is showing a cool action pose, then that's all it is, right? So trying to find ways to ingest story and content and feeling into this kind of thing, to me, is always the real challenge and the real success. Like, if you can do that, and you give people kind of a reason to come back and look at your stuff for a second or a third time to really understand what it is you just put in there, that's a real payoff. Because then they realize that when they see your work, there's going to be kind of a little more to it. And so they come into your work already looking to find more than they expect to see. You know, does that make sense? It's like a really good storyteller. You have a friend that tells stories all the time, or is like one of those people who just always has something to like tell a story about? To me, when you listen to somebody who's a really good storyteller, they get you so involved that by the end everybody's laughing and asking questions, and it's a back and forth, right? To me, that's the real value of a good storyteller. And I feel like artwork can be the same way. By creating moments where you give understanding to the viewer to start taking in more details, I'm involving you in the process of reading the story out. And I think by the end, it can have a lot more impact, a lot more presence, and really have a lot more connective tissue for somebody to look at, find personal relations or experiences they've had, and then connect to it. And so that's what we try to go for. Will we succeed? Who knows? I'm not you. I can only hear or see what you say, but I hope that more is conveyed through that process. Okay, so what I did here is, you'll see I just did these rounds, and all I'm doing is I'm making sure that I'm keeping in mind the shape I want this arm to be. You'll notice that my scaling on this guy is going to be all over the place, and that's fine. Again, I am not going for realism. I'm going for a lean into realistic textures, scale somewhat, but I'm not here to do a photo reference or something super realism. I'm just here to kind of tell this story and get there through the use of these different techniques. And so in this case, I know my arm, a chunk of my hand, chunk of my wrist. Got that. I got the form here. Got my forearm. Got the little elbow bit here. That is always a straight line that goes up and then rolls into the shoulder. Now, you can do this part a lot of ways, right? I could do it muscular. I could do it really base. I want to create kind of a rounding that's going to come like this. So almost like I'm sitting there. And so I know that my arm is going to go to my shoulder, and my shoulder on the backside wraps underneath. So when your shoulder comes up, if you feel that, feel the way your arm sits. Your shoulder here, your arm wraps down, and it wraps down into your body, into the side muscle. And so when we're thinking about that, just consider the fact that if you think about where the flow lines go, even if you don't know the shape of that muscle in this form, if you follow the flow of the lines, you're going to be in pretty good shape. And so in this case, I'm going to do a t-shirt neckline. It's my favorite garment to wear is a t-shirt. I know, I'm a simple person. We'll do our shirt kind of flaring. Okay. Yeah, no, I'm not hating that. Let's shore this part up. Now again, keep in mind that we're going to have a bunch of banners and a bunch of other elements in this. I'm going to be going pretty crazy in this area. So when I'm laying in the arm like this and I'm laying in these details, understand that this isn't going to be the final placement of this item, or at least not the final full coverage. Because this banner is going to be behind, but then there's going to be another element that comes over the top of the arm that kind of wraps it around a little bit. So just give yourself room and don't go too crazy and too hard on some of these details, because I think you'll feel like you're forcing yourself into a very specific direction and channel that you don't want to like get too caught up in that and then feel like, oh crap, I made a mistake, I got to go back. Just don't commit too hard early on, and you leave yourself lots of latitude to play. And to me, that's the point. All right, let's get this guy in. Set that guy up. Put that up there. Alright. Cool. Got that. I'm not a muscly guy. I just am not. I'm more of a very soft guy. Working on that though. 40 is not a place where you lose weight quickly. It is a slow process, but I've been fasting, so that's been kind of cool. I'm fasting. I don't eat between the hours of 10 p.m. and 12 a.m. 12 p.m. 10 p.m. 12 p.m. Yeah, I only eat between noon and 10 p.m. and then after that, no consumption of anything other than coffee and water. It's pretty cool. I've been doing it for 3 weeks and I've lost 14 pounds. It's not bad, you know. It's more about self-control. My biggest problem is I stay up really late, so I'm usually up till 3 in the morning, and then I get up at 8. So for me, it's that you get to a certain point in the evening and your body's just like, give me consumption. So that's been a fun thing to kind of learn how to compensate with. Okay, you'll notice that this forearm is way too big for this arm. And I'm not trying to go Popeye here, but at the same time, I'm also not trying to worry too much about that. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and pull this line in and make that a little straighter. And then I'm going to pull this muscle in and just make sure that this feels like it more caters to the elbow there. Yeah, that'll already be better. So let's just go ahead and pull this line out. That line is going to be hard to pull out because I cut the blue in, and that's okay. I'm not trying to, again, I'm not going for perfection here. I'm just going to lay in the lines so I can start giving myself some real commitments to work against. Ah, that's better. Much better. Okay. Got that there. Got that there. Okay, we're just developing. We're developing. I don't like the angle of this shirt cuff, so let's go ahead and change that to something a little more. Yeah, that's better. A little more there. Awesome. Very cool. And then that is just going to kind of, we'll make sure we have our ramp for the neck there. Let's bring this portion of the corner of the body up. And then let's go ahead and carry this roundness back down here. Okay. So I can show the proper thickness of myself without the love handles. That's the real trick there. Beauty of yourself being the artist, you can cut away some of your not so favorite qualities, but still keep the density of the form. All right, so there's a lot unresolved, but you have to look at what we've done here. So what we've done is we've created the visual anchor now. We know that from here to here, this midsection of the piece is blocked in. So now we know what we have to work around. This is kind of like creating the frame for your house before you put the sheetrock up, right? You create the wooden frames, then you layer the insulation inside the walls, and you plop the sheetrock on the outside of that to kind of create the actual condensed form. We're creating the frame that all of this detail and all this information is going to be in. And we're just not going to stress too much about making sure it's perfect. We're just getting something in to kind of hang our hat on. All right, so let's pull the collar out here. Cool. Again, I'm not too worried about the density of the details. Okay, so let's think about some banners, because I feel like if we start solving this area, it will naturally create that triangle I was looking for. Because again, I want to start here. I want you to come follow the lines down to here. Then I want you to come follow the banners over here, and then you're going to follow the form back up. So that's what we're going to try to maintain. It's that flow of visual interaction. Keep in point, we will absolutely be able to make this the center focus. There's going to be so much high visual contrast and action and movement there that your eye's just going to naturally go there. We just know for a fact that you're going to be able to go and see that spot. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and we're just going to think about how we can make sure that the bottom portion of the piece does what we want. And I'm going to go ahead and bring up, I wonder if I can show some reference on the screen. Probably not. Let's see. Let's look at some quick banners. I've drawn so many banners over the course of my life that sometimes you need to just go and look at some and make sure that it's not, banners can go so many ways. When I was in school, I drew tons of 40s bottles, roses, old English lettering with banners. I mean, that's how I got through high school. I got through high school with no real considerable challenge by doing art to essentially make sure that the kids that I knew would care to be bothersome didn't bother me. And that's also how I made my friend group. I produced artwork, and just naturally over the course of doing that, friendships grew out of that, and then hopefully I was able to positively influence some kids over the course of that time to take, approach things in a better way. Who knows? I don't think I've talked to anybody from high school in my entire life. I dropped out of high school my junior year. I left and just decided to go my own way. Ended up getting my GED a week before I started college. Figure that one out. Okay, let's see here. All right, let's go ahead and see. I got some banners here. I like the way that flows. Okay, so one of the banners I just looked at was from a tattoo that I really think is pretty spectacular. And, I tend to want to do these long, sweepy banner lines, but I actually really dig that for their banners, they actually went very short, clipped. I actually think that might serve my purposes a little better here. And so that's my first banner. And then banners, because you have to think about them as paper or fabric, banners aren't going to just wrap up forever. At some point, they're going to have a bend. And when things on a curved bend, if we look at the tape here, here's my mouse out. All right. So if I'm looking at the tape and I have something that's this round, look at the way that if this tape was supposed to be like the banner, and the banner kind of flowed off of this, at a certain point, that's just a hard edge, right? It may be rounded on the sides, but you're looking at a kind of a hard finish, a hard straight line. One of the things that I like to do is I like to take that straight line, and just wherever there's like a hard straight line, I just give it a little dip in, just to provide a little more life and a little less mechanical, formal structure. And what that does is that really lets me take this line that I've created. Keep in mind, we're creating a triangle. That's the wrong eraser. We're creating a triangle, and we are creating a visual line that runs from up here all the way down here. So, keeping that in mind, we know this banner comes here. Let's bring the banner out, and let's make sure the banner line executes in line with the microphone. And then we're just going to give the biggest round right there. And that will continue that conversation we started up there. Because again, everything is connected. None of these elements on this page is its own unique snowflake that isn't somehow impacted by something else. And I think that's really important, at least for me as an artist. One second, I dropped some artwork. There we go. Okay. For me as an artist, one of the things that I think is really important is to never close off any avenue of design. What I mean by that is, it's very easy to think, oh, well, this is this, so this needs to look like this, right? Oh, this is my OC, and so my OC has to have this quality. Oh, this is a well-known character that I'm doing a piece on, so I should really adhere to what this character is doing. And I think that's... I can understand why people have that point of view, but I actually think that's fairly detrimental to you completing a piece in a way that is your voice. What I mean by that is it's very easy, if you're not careful, to start talking yourself down from really great ideas that just deserve exploration. If you're not willing to give yourself the chance to explore that, even if you don't think that in the end it'll make it through, you're going to miss some of the best opportunities you could possibly have in your artwork. And I don't say that as like, oh, this factually, you should do this or should do this. But I do think that it behooves you to look for opportunities to do something that is out of the norm that you would normally do. Because I think if you can do that, if you can embrace opportunities like that, the stuff that you'll create is really, who knows, right? Sky's the limit, because when you're willing to go and let it be something more than your first pass, and just give it the room to challenge yourself, you really can surprise yourself with some of the work that comes out of your brain and of the time you're willing to invest. Because at the end of the day, when it comes to making art, we are just technicians who are using techniques to tell our stories. We're just storytellers. That's what we are. Visual storytellers. Alright, so we are pushing here. You know, I'm not loving this so far, but I'm not against it. I just need to like get more going on here to kind of justify all of this banner, because that just seems like an excessive amount of banners and words. Okay, let's keep going. I've got the hand in there, I've got the arm, got that built in. Let's go ahead and build our structure neck-wise, Adam's apple. Got that. Okay, let's go ahead and get the beard going. Now the beard is going to be a little bit wild. It's going to be obscured slightly today because we have all the explosion, we have all that stuff. So it's going to be more about the flow of the beard, indicating where things are at. And I'm going to do some lines around the mouth to give me some really clear, like, oh, this should go here, this should go here. And we're just going to create the pathways to this thing coming to life. Okay. We have the ear there. Awesome. Okay. I'm okay with that. Be a little bit wild. So let's talk about what's happening up here. We know that we have the mic blowing apart, the pop filter flying away. We have little bits of mic kind of blowing off. None of this is essential. This is just kind of creating the context of that moment. Let's go ahead and pull the initial beard shape in. For those in the stream, welcome to my stream today. Happy to have you here. We are just kind of plugging along, getting the line work put in for our next piece we started today, and just kind of getting moving. Any ideas, suggestion, participation you'd like to have, you can contact me on any of my social media platforms or here in the chat. Your ideas, suggestions, criticisms, or just wanting to chat, super welcome. Love to have you guys here. I really appreciate you being here to share your time with us. Second here. My wife texted me, so I'm just texting her back real quick. Apologies about looking down and doing nothing for a moment. Be just a second. Alright, so we are going to continue on with this beard development. Make sure I have my pencil here somewhere, right there. There we go. Oh, we've got a nice influx of people on the stream. Welcome to the stream. Glad to have you here. Just kind of working through developing this piece. Thank you guys for spending time with me, and love that we have people here to kind of jump in and share some ideas and some artwork. If you have any questions, comments, ideas, suggestions, please don't hesitate. Your input is absurdly valuable, and I would love to start creating an environment where we have just a lot of collaboration, a lot of sharing of ideas, especially when I'm working on something. You know, my ideas are so liquid. I really try to embrace that, and make sure that anything that I'm working on can change, will change. Maybe that came from working in the field of design, where it's just iteration. But we will, and right now all I'm doing is I'm kind of laying in the general flow lines of the beard. There's this big pump of energy coming from the mic, so that's going to be blowing into the beard, but I also don't want to create like a wind blowing, right? So maybe one of the things I'll do is here I'll have the beard kind of blow back just to like one side, almost like it's creating this hole right here. Actually, that's a really good idea. So what if we'll do some of the beard kind of lifting, and then just around this circle we'll have the beard responding and receding to another direction. So in this case we'll have this guy go here, like that there. Yeah, that'll work. So this is the beard just going whoo, and wafting with the pressure from the mic. Yeah, that'll do. Because everything essentially in this piece is going to be going up, like everything's going to be blowing out this way. So if we just make sure to let the beard kind of accentuate that, which also means I can take this part of the beard and have that blow up like that. Yeah, that works. Yeah, that'll do. And that will create a nice little interesting kind of like mashup and void right here, and I'll have to think about that. Okay, so we're pushing here. Now, one thing that I sometimes hesitate in is throwing in a lot of shading, but in this case, I do think I need to go ahead and start putting down some kind of contrast so I can start defining these areas. Because these are ideas, things that make me up, and also elements of my body, right? So I'm going to have the top teeth here. I'm going to make sure that I have a smile. One thing I really like to do is if I do something where it's like part of me blowing up or something like that, I just try to make sure I recognize that my character was wearing a smile or is wearing a smile in the process. In this case, this is all the ideas blowing out of my head that come during streaming. And so that's why we've created the desktop mic, and that's why we've created this scene, because this is streaming for me. And just kind of exploring that idea. It felt like it needed to be done before I moved on to a broader body of work. So I'm going to have this be my eye. I think that's going to be really important. That's going to have, let's go ahead and have my nose be up here. Now, you'll see me kind of change the nose piece to piece when it comes to drawing my character or drawing myself. There's no formal, like, this is the nose shape exactly. I change it all the time. This doesn't matter to me to keep it the same. I think I want to go ahead and have maybe another eye right here. And let's go ahead and just put that form in. One of the ways you'll see me do eyes is think about the way I do an eye as I do essentially like, and this is just for this style that I tend to lean into. Draw an oval and then take and then make just a little cut in like a beam. And then on the back side, I create this to kind of create the line that is depth in there, and then I fill all this in. And so the eyes are holes. They are not. There's actually no eye there. It's simply the eye socket. And then that's it. That's the eye. So that's what you see being created here, is just these initial shapes. And I'll go ahead and just block in this guy. That. Let's go ahead and put this. Now, I am going to go ahead and allow these shapes that are blowing out to actually be really solid forms. And the reason for that is because I don't want this to be gory. You know, it can be interpreted as being gory just based upon what's actually happening, but I really don't want, that's not what I'm going for here. And so all I'm doing is I'm going to lay down elements that I know will help define these body parts, like my teeth. The gums there, kind of framing the teeth in. This is that part of the mouth tearing off. And we're just going to go ahead and And this is where one of those places where we're going to talk about lines. So remember, when we're talking about setting this up, we're talking about directional, right? We're going to have the primary story here, but we're going to have everything pointing you down this microphone. And so what I want to do is anytime I have opportunities like this where there's a line coming down, let's just make sure this line, everything goes towards this centerpiece. There we go. So let's erase this up a little bit. None of this is permanent. None of this is a big problem. We're just laying in context. But that's what we're doing here. We're kind of making sure that we are keeping our story elements consistent. There we go. What I also find is that when I do it like this, and when I start laying in and creating my elements that kind of transfer story and where they go, that motion, doing something like that creates more power in this general explosion piece right around the face. And so we just want to make sure, just keep that in mind. It's really about trying to communicate the story. In fact, one thing I think I might do is I might do like the tongue here, and the tongue is just like flowing out with everything from the mouth. I don't know, maybe that's too gory. We'll see. I'll have this go behind. Alright, whatever. Let's go ahead and do a little skeleton here. This is something that I'm probably a little more well known for as far as my art goes. It's just kind of these random little unexpected details, little characters kind of that don't really exist in the composition or make sense, but because it's something that I do consistently, it becomes kind of almost expected and okay, so to speak. Let's give a little flight lines, debris. Let's see, we got our bottle of Jack. Alright, hey! That's Comic Maker, welcome to the stream. I was lucky enough to join S Comic Maker's stream last Wednesday. I'll be there this Wednesday as well. Fabulous stream and channel. Please go check her out. What her and her husband have done over on their channel is quite amazing. It's a beautiful community, really special. Today we are working on a piece called "The Man with Only One Remaining Given Name," and it is a piece kind of exploring the idea outburst that I've had now that I've been jumping into streaming. So it's a bit of a self-portrait, a bit of a abstract take on just my experience and all these ideas and trying to kind of grasp all the needs of becoming a streamer and doing it in a visual way. And hopefully by the end we've communicated that in a really beautiful way. That's the goal. Yeah, for sure. It was absolutely delightful. The pleasure was all mine. I was actually really hoping to get in on the stream you did yesterday for subscribers, for your subscriber base, and unfortunately I just couldn't make it. We just had a lot of family stuff going on, but it was really cool to see that pop across my phone. And I was like, note to self, put that on the calendar. There we go. Yeah, so right now we're just laying in our main story elements and trying to create our character create the flow, create the primary focal point, and then create our triangle. Once I get a loose assortment of these elements kind of blocked in, and I get more of some of my personal go-to shapes and objects, then we'll go ahead and get more into really starting to define how all the details and how they all connect, which is going to be a good goal of ours. Okay, let's go ahead and just put some general lines on this guy. Now you'll notice, guys, I'm really hesitant to do any detail work at this point because it's too liquid. It can all change in a moment. And so for me, it really is about just giving myself bones to work with, laying in the stuff that I know is going to be, now I'll put in shapes where I'm like, oh, that's going to be a really cool spot for a pen detail. So you'll see me do that, and that may make it look like I've just done a scribble. But sometimes you just need to give yourself where you're going to have a really clear reflection, especially in things like glass, and try to find ways to just define that area a little bit more before you go in with the pen. Yeah, that's one of those things I'm quite excited about as Comic Maker is to just see the way that you guys have built and cultivated this community, and now just jumping into it, being a part of it, seeing the level of participation you have on the channel is inspiring. And that's one thing I know it's going to be a slow build. I will get there. It's a matter of time thing. But I'm excited to get there. I'm excited to have maybe a stream where it's just everybody kind of talking and drawing and sharing ideas. That was so cool to take part in that. I really enjoyed that. Okay, so we're just going to continue pushing here. Maybe we'll do the other eye up here so we can kind of keep the face. Yeah, maybe that's what we'll do. I feel like the eye down here, it gets lost. So let's go ahead and put the other eye up here. And we're just going to bring our detail in. Yeah, that works. Let's go ahead and lay our teeth down here. Okay, we've got the beard in there, we've got the blowback. Alright, so now let's go ahead and think, what else are we going to put in here? So I'm going to do, where's the nose? And the nose is on its own piece. Yeah, I think that's the one thing I've really embraced as Comic Maker is that it is a ton of work. I'm really looking forward to that journey. I like seeing. I really like going and just scrolling back to as far back as I could on your channel and videos and stuff, and just see how you've developed and the steps you guys have put into place, and it's very fascinating. I've got a few influencers on YouTube and social media that I've been looking at and like, okay, this is a way you can go with this. This is a cool approach, and I think that's kind of definitely the main thrust of the way I'm approaching it now is like, how do I don't get too caught up in what I think it should be, but provide the right opportunity for people to partake and communicate and participate in the channel. To me seems like a really great idea, but building that process seems like the thing that will just take the time, just to see what naturally occurs as the stream goes, and as I improve the quality of the stream. That'll just kind of happen over time, hopefully, Alright. So we've got the nose, we've got the eye, we've got the top of the mouth, we've got the tongue here. So that's kind of nice the way it's still kept the face shape that kind of separated those details. Let's go ahead and throw a few more abstract pieces in here, like my favorite food, pizza. Also, tragedy. My son doesn't like. Yeah, I hope so. I don't know that my insight is. I wouldn't say it's more or less valuable than anybody else's, but I think that I've been doing this in these industries long enough to where, at the very least, hopefully, I can speak to contextually to some of the experiences people have had, and at the very least help them kind of work through challenges or blocks or goals they have. That's kind of one of the beauties of having been doing this for a while. And one of the things I really try to embrace is that there's just no one way to be an artist. There's no one way to create art, and anybody that tells you that you have to do it in a specific format or a technique or a process, I think is a really bad place to come from as an artist, because you're constraining yourself before you begin. And I think that anytime you offer constraints to yourself, like, it's one thing if you constrain yourself to subject matter, right? Case in point, the Tomato Tornado. Amazing. The spin wheel and the way you kind of got to that point, that was one of my favorites. Is the music not going on this guy? Can you guys hear the music okay? Hopefully you can. Okay, I can see it kicking off here. Okay. Right. Everybody has their own story and their experiences to kind of lead them into the art they create. And I'm a big believer that the experiences that you have will greatly define or at least influence whatever you draw. So if two people are given to something to draw, and they're, instead of saying, oh, here's this piece of reference, match this, if you put two pieces down in front of two people and then you give them 10 minutes and then you take that reference away and then you have them draw what they just saw, those two pieces will be vastly different. And it's because you naturally lean into the experiences that you've had in your past to lean in the techniques and skills and all the things you've picked up. And I personally believe that that's really where like true individuality and artistry comes to play. And it just makes it very exciting, which I love. Oh, good. I am glad you can hear that. Perfect. I mean, it's just that repeating the license-free music, but it's more, I can draw to it. It's pretty good. It's pretty enjoyable. So you'll see just kind of amorphous shapes here. This is going to be almost not confetti. That's a really bad way to phrase it, but this is going to be more debris, and we'll have a lot of that motion kind of carrying down. So that's not something I'm going to worry about right here. That's all stuff that's kind of come as we create the art. Little things like little X's and O's are something that I really enjoy kind of placing in the art. It's just something I enjoy. Exclamation points. I feel like these are the kind of things that make it a little less gory and a little more curious. And that's what I'm going for. I'm just not going for gory. It's just not my shtick. But curious. Yeah, I fucks with curious. I'm way down to challenge and throw different things in there that are kind of unexpected, like little speech bubbles. Because the thing is it looks random, but as we start developing this more and more, you can start drawing and chaining these things together. Disparate elements can become synergy very easily. You just have to give yourself enough material there to then try to draw all the similarities too. Now, if you're a really focused artist that lands your idea and knows what you're drawing, then you can ignore everything I'm saying, because you kind of know how to get there. Or if you have an artist who just needs to put down lines and see if something kind of comes out of it, perfect way as well. For me, I'm kind of in between that. I really like efficiency when it comes to drawing, but I'm also one of those people that just needs to kind of let my hand speak and me pay attention and then listen along with it. It's a weird way of saying it, but I think the point comes across. Okay, this is more debris. Let's do a little brain. Okay. Alright, so we've created a lot of this here. We haven't quite laid in the beard flowing back, and that's okay. We don't need that to be super detailed. Just allowing the piece to kind of come together as I poke around and I jump around. Now, that may be something that's a little off-putting as an artist. If you have a hard time moving about your piece as you go, it can be very disruptive to watch another artist do that, and I completely understand that. So, that's the kind of feedback I would love to have. For me, it's a very natural process to jump around my piece. Hey, welcome back, Joseph. Glad to see you here. S Comics, thank you so much for being here. Totally feel it. Thank you very much for popping in the stream. I really appreciate it. You're recording video tonight, so I'm not yet active. You're drawing a second pen. Thank you so much, and I hope you have an amazing day. Thanks for stopping by. I can't wait for the stream on Wednesday. I'll see you Wednesday. Joseph, welcome. You know what? Doing very good. Very, very good. I'm very glad to be back this week. I've made a point of not streaming on the weekends so I can fully focus on my family. And so today I was really excited to jump into this piece. This time, instead of fully penciling it out beforehand, I decided to go and pencil it on the stream. Let the stream bring the piece to life. And then figured, let's just see what happens. Let's see what happens in comparison to the last week's piece and go from there. If you're just joining me, welcome to the stream. I'm glad to have you here. We are just working on developing a piece of art today that will carry on throughout the week. Today is mostly just going to be pencils. I might pull a little bit of pen in at the end, just depends. We have a fresh pen to work with, which is great. This is the result of last week's piece on this pen. As you can see, there is a bit of a quality difference when it comes to the amount of chewing on the pen. It is just the result of being an artist and dealing with the stresses of working through a piece of art. So we'll try to chew on our pens less as well. So what we've been doing is we're kind of laying in structurally all the stuff that's going to be going on in this piece. The general story being is this is my condenser mic. This is a story of me streaming right now and kind of going through the initial bumps and kind of getting my ideas to come out and just be present. And so this is kind of week one and seeing what it's going to become. And yeah, just kind of pushing pencils around and seeing where we're going to land. In fact, one of the things I'm really not liking, and this is going to sound weird, this arm's wrong, right? Think about how long this part of the arm is compared to this part of the arm. And that's okay, but I'm kind of hating it. And so I'm wondering if, once we do a little more resolution up here, maybe we erase this whole section out. I mean, I don't mind if the arm goes like way out here and it comes way back in here. Like, I don't mind if the proportions are weird. I just want to make sure that the proportions are right? So, you know, this part of the arm should be the same length, roughly, when you're looking at, we don't, if you think about the forearm, from here to here in the shoulder and here to the forearm, when it comes to a drawing, you're roughly looking at the same color. If that's not happening, and that is clearly not happening here, then you're going to run into some problems. So there's a couple ways we can solve that, right? I mean, I can bring this whole part of the arm up higher, up here, right? Then I can have myself really leaning over, and that may be the solution already right there. Like if I have myself almost like hunching over, then it lets me do something kind of fun in here, right? And I can see, this is what I'm talking about, guys. There's no reason to feel caged in your composition or the piece you lay down if you give yourself the room to just play. And as long as you don't put anything down really, really hard, then there's a very good chance that you will be able to just keep kind of poking and prodding and moving and pushing. In fact, this just came to life even more, just now. This line, this was something I couldn't see before. I just wasn't grasping it. But let's go ahead and just remove this. Again, we are not committed. Oh, sorry about the shaking. We're not trying to commit ourselves to just doing exactly the perfect line the first time. What we're trying to do is trying to make sure that we give ourselves the room where we can accommodate and adjust. And just this adjustment alone, I think you're going to see it as soon as I do it, is going to make a massive difference. One of the first purchases I'm going to make when I start getting a little bit of revenue from the stream, I'm going to be pushing all of my income into upgrading my setup. I'm going to get a angled desk area to work on, and then I'm going to mount the camera against the wall. And that way, if I'm erasing on the desk, you don't see the shaking. So I apologize about that. That's more of a quality issue. It's something that will improve. I only started streaming last week, so lots of things to learn and lots of things that I can get better at. So hopefully you guys, it's not too off-putting, and as you stick around and you show up for other streams, hopefully you'll see improvement. That's one of my big goals. Okay, this is a million times better already, right? So I'm going to bring this arm up. I'm going to bring this arm up. I'm going to let this arm go back here, because this is where the shoulder would be. And I'm just going to let myself be a big old, like, hunched over dude. That's better. That's better. Okay. So the neck will be wrong, and that's okay. We're going to go ahead and we're going to pull the neckline out. And keep in mind, guys, this is all going to pen, right? So because it's going to bend, when we go and do this stuff, we're going to leave all these lines. And what that's going to do is that's going to create this really beautiful texture underneath the pen that kind of shows our process. And I'm really, man, I used to be so afraid of that. I used to erase so much of what I was making. And it just was a stopping point. And these days, I'm really enjoying leaving the tracks, leaving the mistakes, leaving the things, and just letting the artwork be true. Or at least truer to what came out of the efforts. It may not translate perfectly to a sticker or a t-shirt or whatever paraphernalia that I'd like to nail, but that's something I can cross, another bridge I can cross another time. That will be something that, as we go forward in the channel, we'll figure out exactly how we're going to do those things, and then we'll find the best method to accomplish that. But there's no reason that those kind of considerations should come in and affect the art yet. So I'm going to let the neckline stay actually pretty low, almost like the shirt's like a little worn. Yeah, that works. So we're going to go ahead and let's put some pencil on this, some darker pencil. Bring this line up. That. Yeah, that works. Okay, so keep in mind, this may not be even the final placement, right? That's okay. All we're doing is we're trying to give ourselves space where we can justify the position of our primary elements to make sure our story is coming through. Because really, this part of the piece is not even the main thrust, not even a really important element of the piece, right? It's the arm off on the side. That's not vital. But what we're trying to do is we're trying to make sure that at no point does this area become an interruption. Because if this becomes an interruption, if this becomes somewhere where like somebody's eye stops, then we really hurt our own story we were trying to tell. And so it's just about making sure that we accommodate those areas and just stick in. Yeah, that works. Better shape, better flow, better position. The piece feels more dynamic. It felt too small there before, it just didn't feel right. This also lets me do something like this. I definitely do not have a flat stomach, so I do not want to try to insinuate that I am a skinny guy there. Let's go ahead and just lay in something else a little more realistic. I'll just go like this. Yeah, that's better. And then I'm just going to go ahead and let my other arm, like the arm's back there, but it's not going to be important because I'm going to fill this space with a lot of stuff. Okay. Hey, for those on the stream, welcome to the stream. Glad to have you here. We're just kind of pushing some pencil around and finding our composition. We're moving through defining some of these unique characters and elements we're going to inject. It's all very loose right now, but we are going and pushing. So, okay, a couple things. We've laid down this banner down here. I don't love it, but I don't hate it. There's more we can do. So I need to pull some more elements there, and I'm not sure exactly what I'm going to do there. So let's think. For those, I have my iPad up with a big reference folder that I look at. I sure wish I could share it to the screen. It's definitely not something that's easy to share. But what I am looking at, I was looking at banners before, and I'm just trying to think about the way I'm going to introduce some new elements and characters into around the banner. I think that's going to be pretty essential to bringing the story to life down below. I'm not sure if I want to do it like my little creatures. On the last one you saw come out in the tentacle that was with holding the pencil. The blackness, like that black tentacle, is usually a representation of like my creativity, so artwork, things like that. But I have I really like to put a bunch of like little characters and stuff into my artwork. Actually, in fact, you know what? I think I've got a great example that I might be able to just steal from. Let me pull a piece real quick. I'll be right back. 30 seconds. Okay, let's dig back into some old pieces. We're looking for something to kind of bring this area to life. This area is a little empty, and I'm just not happy with the way it's all executing. So this is kind of something where I'm looking at. Like, this is something that I've done in the past. I'm going to show you guys a lot of old, underdeveloped work. So please don't judge me on it. It's just sketches that I've been carrying around for years that have just come with me. That's not bad. Let's see. We got that guy. We got those guys. Reams and reams of Bristol board. Let's see. I'm not feeling that. Those are not the wrong style. Can do something a little more in this direction. You know, the flowing of the water, the flowing of like the asset. Okay, here we go. This is what I'm looking for. I'm looking for these kind of characters to be existing in the lower section, below the bulk of the base. The smoke is a really good way to convey that. I did it here a little bit with kind of smoke as well. Let's see. Alright. Well, I know this isn't the most engaging way to stream, so let me go ahead and stop doing this. I think we've nailed what we're looking for. So, let's do this. Let's go ahead and pick up from those characters that we just found. For context, these pieces were ones I did when I worked for another agency, and they asked me to just do some creative pieces kind of representing the different offices. And it was kind of called Set Creative, and I did some exploration on them for a project. It actually never ended up going anywhere, so I just kept art because it was mine. And someday I will do something with it. I've got, I don't know, 100, 200 pieces like that of just art that's kind of done, that just hasn't been explored. That'll be some really fun stuff to put on the stream and let people choose to follow that or jump onto that if you'd like. Alright. So, I know that I want to bring some of this quality down here. Now what you can see is there's already some comparisons, right? Look at this form. I've actually created much the same shape because I'm creating that triangle. Let's see, what is going to go down there? How do I approach that? Maybe it's like a village of characters. Or a stack of characters. Could be smoke. I am bringing up that I'm out of Portland, Oregon, so maybe I can do something with the Pacific Northwest in mind, actually. Now, that seems a little redundant with the stuff I've already done. How to approach that? It could be all words. That may be the way. How do I approach this area? So this is part of the process, guys. When it comes to being an artist, creating art, sometimes you gotta take a second in your piece and figure out what it is that you would like to express as in the piece and have it come out. It's not always, you don't always see the piece and you're like, that's it, magic, I'm done. Like sometimes it takes some time to get to where you need to go and bring the pieces to life. So here's an interesting idea. let's go ahead and we're going to create a stump. I don't really know why. I've always had a connection to like cut trees and wood, but I do. I've always really enjoyed illustrating them. I love the rings of wood. I think it's pretty cool. And we're going to let this banner wrap around the wood. I'm going to have like a little portion of this guy, so let's go ahead and erase the centerpiece around this arm, because it's going to be the least important part. And this is going to be like a little stage. Maybe those will be like nailed to the log itself. That could be fun. Let's go ahead and do something like this. Let's go ahead and do a branch sticking off, maybe like a leaf or two. That's kind of cool. And then let's go ahead and think. So this is going to be a stage. I'll have a couple little characters here. I'm not sure what they'll be doing. We'll figure that out. This is also going to be where I'm going to start injecting some words. One of my favorite artists, Macbeth, fabulous artist. Look him up on Google. You'll definitely see some of the influences from his work in mine. It's just, I've always just vibed with the way he tells stories and the way he does. Big fan of James Jean. Huge fan of James Jean. He's really defining in regards to the way I have evolved as an artist. Let's see here. How do I want to approach this lower section? One of the things that great advice I got from my wife when I started doing this, she was very clear. She was like, just be authentic. Whatever you do, just make sure it's you. Don't try to go crazy and do something that's outside of your wheelhouse. Don't try to create art just because you think it'll get viewers or be popular. Just do you, and it'll all work out for you. And I gotta say, it's been something that I've really tried to embrace from the very beginning. It's just be comfortable. I don't know why, but wrapping my hands just now here in rope became very right. I can't explain it. It's just it's gonna work. I'm gonna put a big old knot here. And let's go ahead and have one bit of rope just kind of. Maybe we don't need to see it. We'll see. That's fine. Okay, that's working out really good. This might provide context for the log, but I'm not going to worry about that too much right now. So we've gone ahead and we just bulk that in. I'm going to go ahead and get my blue pencil. Let's go and make a commitment here. Let's just do this. Is it perfect? Absolutely not. And I don't even know if this is how it's going to fully go to the end of the piece, but I'm really digging what it's doing right now. So we're just going to kind of lay that rope in. And we're just putting those lines down. Awesome. Hope everybody here is having a great day. Thank you very much for joining me. Just kind of chilling on the stream today, working on developing this piece of artwork. This is the process. Before we get to the pen work, we've really got to hash out what this piece is, because the moment you put pen down, you can't go back. But also you'll see that we're keeping things really loose, and there's a reason for that. I need the piece to be allowed to kind of come to life on its own, and if I jump really early into pen work, then I take away opportunities to be fluid. So what you'll notice is when I'm laying down pencils, I'm really just indicating where something's at. When I start laying in the pen, that's when we commit. So we don't have to force ourselves into that pathway yet. So I'm just trying to really make sure that this area that is such a bulk of this piece has some really interesting story and reason behind it. And one of the things I'm exploring is introducing some of my smaller, interesting characters down into that space. I think one of the other things I should think about is I've got a son that is a very active and important part of my day. I'm a stay-at-home dad, and part of the pieces that I want to introduce is I want to introduce this whole care aspect. As a stay-at-home father, a great deal of my attention and my efforts every day are into seeing my son succeed in the challenges he faces through trying to learn words, trying to get used to obeying rules, trying to develop good habits with other people. And that's something that I'm really interested in finding a way to introduce into my art, but not forcing it. I feel like it'll happen as it happens. And I think that maybe by giving myself the room to just have fun with it and introduce little characters and stuff, maybe I can go ahead and find him somewhere in there as well. These guys are going to be like little squids. Again, this is that visualization of like my creativity in a physical form. Tends to be black blobby characters. It's just kind of the black inky stuff that runs out of your head and can form into anything. Everybody's got their own color for it. Mine is devoid of all light. It's just kind of shadow and shade. But I think these guys are what will allow this piece. Yeah, that's going to work. So maybe what we'll do is we'll have like, this is what I was talking about earlier. There's always going to be things that creep up and eke up and change on these pieces. And so if you give yourself the room to not try to force it, you can come up with some great stuff. Okay, so this is coming together. What story are these guys doing? What are they doing that's so important that they need to be on this piece of art? That's usually the question I have to ask myself. What are these guys accomplishing? Okay. So maybe this is like, okay, here we go. So this is a pool of ideas, kind of in the stump. It's like in a stump of a tree. I'm going to have like liquid, so concentric liquid circles. Maybe we'll have some straws going up. And these guys are just sipping away on this idea pool. Okay, here we go. See, we're creating a cycle, okay? So the story starts here. The story really is streaming. It's kind of my head's exploding outwards. All the ideas are coming out the back of my head. Part of the top of my head is exploding as well. And that's really like where the primary focus is going to be. But as you follow the mic down, everything's going to be going into this stump here. This little stump that's going to be essentially like the top of a martini glass, like black liquid. And so the ideas themselves are drinking out of it. All my little creatures are drinking out of it. My mic's going into it. And so this is kind of the source of those ideas. The source of those ideas is effectively being like my imagination or like this inky black pool of ideas. Okay, this is what we're looking for. When we're looking for trying to bring these ideas to life, it's important to just keep poking at it until it kind of resolves. This is what I was talking about. Now there's a purpose. Now we have like an anchor point. Now the focus is still going to be up here, and I'm going to try to make sure that this black pool is very equal scale-wise, as far as like dimension-wise. We want it to be center because we're creating a triangle. This is just a nice bit of symmetry to run it right at the center. Always look for opportunities like that. It's not important to the success of your piece, but it goes a long way to it looking like you really thought about the way the elements all connected and tied together. So in this case, I have my mic, which now I'm going to go ahead and turn my mic more organic. We're going to turn this into its own unique thing. That's going to go right up into the pool. Yeah, that's going to be cool. Okay, this is all coming together now. This is great. So these characters, let's talk about what they are. I've always kind of created these little characters ever since I was a little kid. I had imaginary friends when I was a kid. I really hope my son gets an imaginary friend. I'm excited to see that journey, what that looks like. But in this case, we're just looking to make these characters kind of have a purpose. And in this case, my characters generally are my ideas. That's not always true, but that can be the case. I also want to point out the fact that there's still a big communication and word aspect of this one. And I'm not sure how I want to adjust that, because I have space for words down here, but I kind of want to have words in here. And I wonder if I should find a way to put a little more font into the center of this piece. That's going to be a real question. How do I safely inject a little bit more communication? Okay, so maybe what I can do. Okay, this might be a little bit interesting. What if these characters actually became one giant form? Almost like a like an inky cloud, or like almost like cotton. I'll come back to this. I think this area is getting us stopped up, and I don't think it's necessary. I don't think we're getting as much out of it as we're putting into it time-wise. So let's go ahead and let's look for somewhere else. How about we start developing this with pen? Let's see what happens. Let's get our fresh pen. There's no harm, no foul, right? It's not like we're going to break it. That is 5:45. Okay, we're doing good on time. Let's start with the teeth, because we know what they are. They're a known quantity. Let's wake our pen up. Sometimes this happens. Ballpoint pens. You have a ballpoint pen that's not activating? Here you go. This is what you do. Take your ballpoint pen, put it between your hands, and just run it. Give it a good second. What you're doing is you are causing the ink to wake up a little bit, and hopefully dislodge any dry pieces. Alright, that is a pen that I'll have to figure out some other time. Let's grab another one. Come on. Hey, there we go. Alright, we got a contender. Okay. Let's just start with the teeth, because we know exactly what we're going for there. That's one thing I always like to do, is I always like to go ahead and just lay down lines in an area where I think at least I can feel safe saying, okay, that piece isn't going to change too much. And the teeth are a great spot, because the teeth have already been defined as a center point of the action. Something you'll notice, I'm not pushing down hard on my pen. That's not why we're here. I'm not trying to make hard defined lines. These are not actually the formal borders that are going to be the lines for this, the teeth here for at the end. But all we're doing is we're laying in the area where we know it's going to effectively stay in place. There we go. And then I'm going to go ahead and just start creating some of this inconsistency where everything's blowing out. I know that I have my tongue right here. And let's go ahead and do the internal tongue line. Alright. Now keep in mind, when we're working on something that's a little more abstract, or at least less formal and trying to line up to what real life looks like, you can be loose. You just have to be intentional, right? So in this case, could you say, well, the tongue's in a weird spot, or oh, that's kind of awkward? Yeah, sure it is, whatever. But we're laying down the pieces and kind of committing that to that spot. We can evolve that piece, no problem. Just don't get too caught up on that. That's really important, because the moment you start looking at your piece and start saying, oh my God, I gotta fix that, oh, I gotta fix this, it's a trap. And if you get into that space too quickly, you can really kill your momentum at the very beginning of a piece of artwork. So I'm just getting my initial placement for all of my ink elements in. There is no specific rush to try to answer all the questions I may have about this or make sure it looks perfect. It's just not necessary right now. All I'm doing is I'm creating the initial form language to tell you exactly how this piece is going to evolve. These lines that I'm putting down are only guidelines. These are the guidelines that will be used for the actual texture lining and all the detail lining I'm going to be doing here in a second. I'm not going to put heavy lines right here because it's kind of a big point of action. So the pressure from the mic is blowing everything out to the top side of the head. So I'm going to go ahead and just make sure that in this area around the mic, it's not going to be as detailed, and that's going to actually create a really great visual, almost like corona. Think of like sunlight, but we'll do it through the shading. And so those elements, your eye will go, oh, that's a point of like pressure, that's a point of impact. And so your eye will do all the work for you without us having to get too specific. Okay, so we've created this kind of line of everything pushing away. Got everything that way. Alright. Now in this case we're allowing the beard to start blowing back, and almost like the beard has been caught by this air pressure and pulled this way. So I'm going to go ahead and just commit to that. Everything this way, everything for the beard is going to be blowing up and towards this direction. Yeah, there we go. And over the shoulder. Awesome. Okay. Now again, we're just laying in our guidelines. We're not committing to our details. So this is just kind of laying in our anchor points. Let's go ahead and maybe come down to the mic. The mic's pretty set. Pretty happy with that. Now one thing I'm not going to do, well, you know what, let's just do the mic because we can have all those characters be behind the mic. I think there's still a little bit of exploration to be had there. One of the reasons why we did this microphone is because this is my tabletop microphone and this is not a music microphone. I didn't want that to get twisted. This is a piece not about me being a musician, but a piece about me being a streamer. And all the stuff that comes along with that. Cool. There's a big curve and corner there. Very nice. Alright. And got that. Cool. Okay, so one thing I'm not liking is I'm not liking these blue lines we laid down earlier for this condenser mic. I just feel like that they're not necessary for the story, and nobody really needs to know that those lines are on my mic, right? You can see my mic shape and everything, and you can get that. So those are kind of an unnecessary element. I was hoping that they would work, but I would rather turn this microphone head into a character. So that's what I think I'm going to do. I'm going to turn it into a smiley character. Because why not? Let's go ahead and just take this and just round it. And let's go ahead and give it Yeah, good. Sometimes I'll integrate a little bit of cutesy into my pieces. Just I enjoy it. It's kind of an aesthetic that I've always attached to. I grew up loving Japanese design, Japanese characters, anime, manga. Love Japanese food packaging and South Korean food packaging, which is amazing as well. Great source of inspiration. If you ever are looking at a piece and like you want to get like a really, in fact, one of my favorite books I have is this sketchbook. Oh, let me just make sure my books don't push over my camera. I have this sketchbook from one years and years and years ago. I got it in college, but I've never been able to get rid of it, and it's just the coolest little book. I'm going to adjust the camera here a second, guys. 1 second. I hope this doesn't make you feel sick or anything. Just trying to fix it because I got it all off kilter. Okay. I love this aesthetic. It speaks to me on so many levels, and this is just at the core. This is a place where my happiness lives. Is this kind of world? So yeah, just for some context. So sometimes you'll see me do kind of cutesy anime character kind of things, and that's where it's coming from. Now this still will be a microphone, so we'll still need to give it like mic texture and all that. This also makes it really fun for this like explosion of detail here, because this lets me really make this poppy. So all of a sudden there's almost like this very intense like Japanese hard pop line that I'm going to be throwing in here just to kind of insinuate this like explosion of ideas. Because really, we're not looking at an explosion like an explosion of power. We're looking at like an explosion of like concepts that are like blowing up the top of my head. Because it's just so much. There's so many opportunities that I'm just like. Oh. So we'll go ahead and add one more layer. All right, I'm working. That's working for me. Initial shapes in. Initial mechanical elements in. That's like a peekaboo window on my mic. That's another detail. It's just like a cut in. That's whatever. Let's get some of the debris. Okay, great. Go ahead and let's go put a little bit of action here. Sound effects, by the way. When you're drawing something that emits a response or feeling or idea, make the sound effect. It sounds silly, and people will think you're silly for doing it, but I guarantee that the art will represent the sound more if you can hear it, if you can say it. Alright, so now we have very clearly established that this is where the action is coming from. Yeah. Alright, so now we've defined the very clear point of action. So let's go ahead and allow this to just bring this piece to life around this area. And now we're defining how the beard's going to respond to this action. So it's clearly blowing back over here. Yeah, that'll do. Right here, it'll just look like it's being blown back underneath it. Yeah, that works. Okay. Cool. So we've got that there. We've got the shirt. We've got that. And let the shirt neck be a little stretched, totally fine. Let's see. Let's go ahead and create just a little bit of the broken pop filter up here. All the debris and everything breaking apart. Debris. Okay. Go ahead and get to these fingers. Now again, I'm keeping it super light, but I am going to pen it in. The reason for that is I want to make sure I'm giving myself plenty of boundaries to work with. This is also why we laid in those ropes. Awesome. For those of you joining us on the stream right now, thank you so much for being here, by the way. I've got viewers on all 3 platforms right now. Love having you guys here. If you have any ideas, suggestions, concerns, thoughts, improvements, all your ideas and all your participation is everything. So I would really appreciate any suggestions. You can hit me on social media. You can mention it here. We're growing. This is week 2 of the new stream. And we're just going to keep pushing and driving and drawing. But I also want to think about the way we can create improvement. Because I know that, equipment's one area where I can improve, but also just the quality of the stream, what we talk about, those kind of things. So any ideas or suggestions are so welcome. And thank you guys very much for being here. I really appreciate it. Okay, so we are pushing. Now, keep in mind what we have going on here with fingers, right? Don't lose count of your, this is going to sound so silly, but don't lose count of the fingers, okay? This happens all the time, okay? If you're drawing hands and you have the hands engaged, like so, keep in mind which finger is where, right? So we know this is the index finger on the right hand. I'll pull that like this. Pull that in. I'm not going super realistic on hands this time. I'm going to let the fingers be almost like a little snaky. And, sometimes I'll just do that. Why not? Again, this is all about stylized drawing. I'm going to have this one. That does not mean that the fingers don't have to be appropriate. They absolutely do. In fact, when you're doing stylized art, hands are even more important to get right, because if you don't get the right pieces in the right spots, people will just assume that you did stylized because you couldn't do the hands, because you couldn't do the face, because you couldn't do the proper structure. And that's not always a problem, but it can be a derailment when somebody is looking at your piece of art and they get stuck on why something's just looking a little off to them. So keep that in mind. Stylization is a great way to draw whatever the hell you want. But when you do that, you open yourself up to then it being something that people look at and they just assume you can't do the real thing. So it's about trying to make sure that you're communicating your capabilities in the right way. Okay, so we got that in there. We knew we were going to go ahead and change up this guy. So how are we going to change the mic? We're going to change the mic because the mic is no longer going to be a formal mic ending. I'm going to make it something that's a little more interesting. Let's just do something that's more round. Maybe that's what we'll do. We'll do more of a round bottom. That way the light, yeah, that'll work. So we're going to say this. There we go. And then has this bit, it's a little more round. There we go. And then it has this bit, it's a little more round. And that'll be some nice fun detail to play with. How can I turn those into organic but almost equipment-like? You know what I'm saying? I'm going to go ahead and just lay in a couple lines. It's okay to do this with a pen, by the way. It's okay to do a light line because you know that you're going to go a lot harder and a lot darker. This area down here is predominantly going to be black. And so what I want to do is I just want to make sure to give myself enough material to feel confident that I can really pump some blacks into it later on. There we go. Yeah, that'll work. Let's go ahead and just have that. We will absolutely hardline this line later on, this chord. And it is okay that we're sketchy with the penny line. Super okay with that. Alright, so now, let's see where we're at. Alright, not too bad, not too bad. We are looking at 2 hours and 8 minutes. Okay. And our rope. And then I'm only going to define this rope. I'm going to leave the other rope because we saw that stump with kind of that ideal pool down below. So we'll go ahead and we'll leave that for now. This rope is going to be pretty frayed. Yeah. Go ahead and just put that guy in there. That indicates that there is the rope right here. So just do the top portion. Yeah, that'll work. Okay. Alright, so for those of you on the stream with me right now, what you've been seeing is us just take and push these details into kind of more of a defined space, right? We're using the big pen to just start laying in the framework. But we've been able to develop this piece almost entirely on the stream. I mean, when we came in, it was really just some green lines and blue lines. We've come quite a long ways on the stream with this, so I'm really happy about how far we've come in this just a short amount of time. There's got to be some things that we have to resolve here. I'm okay with that. You know, you don't always have to solve it all. It's okay to not have a part of the piece defined. On the last piece I worked on, I didn't have like half of the piece defined until I started doing heavy texture work. I think one thing I'd like to do here is I'd like to really nail in this story element. This is going to be a big question mark. This, however, is all coming together quite nicely. In fact, I'm very happy with up here. We can do some things that we can lay in. Alright, we're just pushing. Now, the reason you'll notice I'm just kind of doing really loose pen work is because as we implement shading, we bring more shading into it. These areas, the lines you're seeing now will disappear completely. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing I hope that when somebody's breaking into pen work, I can try to get them to understand is like, man, you can do so much line work that the viewer will never see. You know, because a great deal of what we're going to try to do is we're going to try to create these moments that develop as the user looks at them more and more and more. And that's kind of what I'm shooting for here is creating just the indication so that when I come in I can really ink confidently and just know that nothing I put down here is going to be permanent. I can, you know, I'm still in the space where I can make mistakes comfortably. And that's such an important thing to understand and be comfortable with, is that you don't have to get it right when you start putting pen work down. That's not a requirement. It may feel like that because pen feels so, so permanent, but this is that whole thing with understanding the technique and the contrast. By understanding what contrast is available and what techniques you can use to kind of control these little moments, it really frees you up to be very creative and just have fun. There's no degree of requirement for something like this because it's just coming out of our head. What are you going to possibly say that it should or should not look like, right? Who knows what this is supposed to look like? I certainly don't, and nor should you. And if you do, cool, then maybe you can convey that through a picture, but just don't feel like it has to be a certain way, because I think if you do that, you're doing yourself a disservice. 1 second, my wife's here. Be right back. I'm going to turn the stream off. Hey, so unfortunately, or fortunately, my wife's home, and I need to do a little bit of helping her out. So I'm going to cut the stream early. If you're on with me currently, thank you so much for being here today. I really, really appreciate it. I'll be back tomorrow at 11 o'clock. I hope you're having an amazing day. I hope you have an amazing rest of your day. And I look forward to continuing this piece with you on the stream tomorrow. Have a good night. Thank you so much for being here, and thanks. Later, y'all.